Hey, good morning. Welcome to the 5 a.m. Mester Scrum Show. Gonna talk a little bit about a little different today, but it's definitely a tip. Got your $10 bill here, 10%. Talk about saving 10% of your pay every time you get a little bit of income and save it for yourself. This applies to entrepreneurs, self-business people, people with career jobs, because I always talk about future and I experience stuff, share my stuff. There are times in transition when you transition from one job to another, one place to another, that there could be stoppages in income that having saved that 10% will go a long way in the future. And it's a good habit. And when you do, you can enjoy it and enjoy some vacation time. So we're going to talk about that. That's a little personal tip. Uh, not career advice. I don't know, financial advice. It's not even financial advice, but some thoughts. I mean, if you listen to Dave Ramsey, always talk about saving 10%. Every school, every book says about putting 10%. There is not a financial book that doesn't say that. I just wanted to share my experience with doing that and how I do it and how I recommend to anybody to try to do this as you go, because there are transitions. Don't kid yourself. There's stuff happens, layoffs, bad times, switching jobs, going from one industry to another, which I've done all these things, that having this little bit of a nest egg to fall back on rough times is a good thing. So this is the 5 a.m. Mester Scrum Show, and today we're going to talk a little bit different, but it's the same kind of thing. It's practical and tactical. This is very practical and tactical. You think about it from my personal financial perspective and just keeping things going the way you want. So you can bring value to your customer, not work so hard to get that value to the customer, and to have a little fun along the way. And the value of your customer is yourself at this point. We always talk about servicing others, and sometimes we have to talk about servicing ourselves. And I just want to share my experiences from working corporate world, from different contracts over the years to starting my own business, having redone my business again, going through those phases and looking at that and really digging down on what I want to do and what my goals are and how I doing things. So I wanted to share that with you. So today I'll talk about, I got a $10 bill just because it's a 10. I figured that would show the $10. The 10% idea. So every book out there, every financial, you listen to Dave Ramsey's big news, big talk thing. He does his getting out of debt thing, which I am doing that with my wife, trying to pay off our mortgage and get that done so we can celebrate being totally out of debt another year or so. But saving 10% of your pay. There are a lot of business people out there. I love Grant Cardone and all that, and I love listen to Alex Morosi. So when they say you should invest all your money into business, even Alex, who's a $100 million heir, realized that he didn't like not having some cash to fall back on or have his own capability. And part of that I interpreted as what he didn't do. He plowed everything back into his business. Some people plow it all back in. And my take on that is I would pay myself 10%, right? You get your paycheck, and I do a W-2 thing, and I do all that. And there's a whole nother reason why I do that. And I can share that with you in the future. But when I pay myself a paycheck, no matter how small it is, sometimes it's really small, I give myself 10% that I put in my savings account. And why do I do that? And it doesn't, and it's just something that happens. I do that because there's always been in my career points where money stops flowing. It just happens. Sometimes it never happens. A lot of times it was out of my control. Sometimes it was my own choice. But having that little 10%, putting that little savings, helps for those weeks or a couple weeks when you're transitioning from one job to another to pay the bills, to cover the mortgage and all that. And I'll be honest with you, I've been there where I didn't have the money to cover the mortgage, and that was rough. But I did get the money because I took side jobs and odd jobs and earned enough money to pay my mortgage and keep the bill. So they might have been late. It took me 10 years to get that off my credit rating. but I worked my tail off and took odd jobs, worked in UPS. Every once in a while, you see my UPS coffee mug. I worked all kinds of jobs, trust me, during those times just to make the money in between jobs and careers and switching and transition and failed businesses and starting up new businesses and things like that. So, but taking that 10%, it can be done very well. If you do a budget, I balance my checkbook every week, sometimes every day when I pay these bills, make sure I have enough money in there and pay them, so on. But when I get my paycheck, I take 10% of my take home, not what I get paid. Okay. Let's be realistic here. People are like, oh, 10% of your pay. No, 10% of your take home. Now, if you're really doing well, maybe you can take 10% of your pay, but I say it's 10% of your take home. I take 10% of that and I put it in a virtual savings account where I earn a little bit of interest on it. So it does make a little bit of money, but it goes in there. And I use that for a rainy day fund when I have to balance things or we go on vacation. Do I have vacation money? We went on vacation to Disneyland, Disney World, actually. And part of that savings I used to cover the expenses of that so that we enjoyed our vacation. I had squirreled away enough money when I was earning really good money in my corporate gigs to take care of that and not have a worry to be done. So that 10% and that just habit, just like in Scrum, you want to establish habits that just keep going no matter what you're doing. And that 10% is not too bad. I do the same thing with my giving. I what I do, because my wife and I both work, I base my 10% on what I make, right? She does her thing, she got her money, helps pay the bills and everything like that. And then whatever 10% I make based on my check, I take 10%, I put in savings, I take another 10%, and we donate to our local charities or church and things like that we do on a weekly basis. So I have it automatic. I said, well, if I got paid $1,200 this week or 2,000 or whatever the number was, I take 10%. So it's $120. So $120 goes in the savings, right off the bat. And sometimes I split it. So also invest in stocks. You can do I'm surprised they don't make money. So they don't charge you any more money to trade stocks. So I take that $120. Let's say I take 60 goes in my savings. The other 60 goes into buying dividend stocks or something like that, just to grow in the long term. But I wanted to share that with you because there will be times when it'll be rough in the transition. And that little 10%, you don't think it's a lot, or maybe you can't afford it. But trust me, you're going to want to. So even if you're making $100 that week, let's say you had a bad week, you're not making so you only made $100 in sales. Take that 10%, put it into an account somewhere for pay yourself, right? Pay yourself some of that revenue. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're like, oh, I'm going to plow all my money back in there. No, pay yourself. Even I doing with the coffee shop. And one of the things I kind of emphasize with the partner on that is you should be paying yourself. Make sure you pay yourself for what you're doing. Even if it's like a W-2 thing. Like everyone's like, oh, I just paid them. No. Do the W-2, do the taxes, do the pay yourself like an employee. Treat yourself like an employee. And then the other stuff is good stuff. But always treat yourself first on that one. Because you should be in that habit, right? So try to get that habit of putting away that 10%. I got the $10 bill here, 10%. So if you made $100 this week, take $10, put it in a savings account, because there will be a day when you won't be having that $100. You won't be having that $1,200. You won't be having that $2,000. Whatever it is you get paid a week, or every 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, or whatever the distance is during those transitions. And that $10 will come in handy in the future, because you need something. You need to be able to go to the store and buy some bread and buy some lunch meat or vegetarian stuff or whatever you'd like to eat. Some cheat, who knows, and have some lunches. So, and dinner maybe, or ramen, who knows? Been to the ramen thing, been to the sandwich stuff. So I just want to share that with you as a practical and tactical tip for those who are transitioning or those who are even working in the office. I really recommend saving that 10%. You may not think you need it and you don't need to do it. Trust me, it'll come in really handy in the future, right? Um, and it's just good to have, because maybe one day you go on that vacation. Oh, we got to worry. No, don't worry about it. We've been squirreling away money. You think about it this way: if you squirrel away $100 every pay, right? So by the end of the year, you have $5,200. Think about that. You think about it. So then so next year, when you want to go on vacation, you have $5,200 you just saved, put away, that you can use to take a nice little vacation. And that's a kind of how much it costs to go to Disney World nowadays. Probably about that much money. If not more, depending what you do per se. So if you think about it, you squirrel $100 a week from your pay stub. At the end of the year, you have $5,200. That's not bad. It's not bad in this world. Some people think it's nothing, but you know what? It's better than nothing. So I wanted to share that with you. Save your 10%, because those transitions do happen. We don't control a lot of those transitions. Sometimes we put ourselves in those transitions, like I've done quite a few times in my career, but I do recommend that. It's a good habit. I should do it on my little spreadsheet. I put my pay, and then I do all these deposits and pay savings and put money to my kids' school and all that stuff every pay. But I put a little 10%. I put a 10% for my own savings, and I put a 10% for, charity. So every time I do it, it calculates it, deducts it from what I have in my bank account. So I know how much money to write those checks out to charity or churches and stuff like that every week. And then also for myself, right? So do that every pay, even if it's hard to do. And that's when you really want to do it. You want to do it. So that's what I wanted to share today with you on 2-for-1 Tuesday. How do you 10x your life? How do you 10x what you're doing, your career? When you don't worry about that pay, you can make those choices, right? I didn't say that. I guess I should say that. If you have that little bit of cash put aside, and you really don't like your job or your boss or whatever there, and you're debating whether you want to switch, having that little cushion, because you've been putting away, let's say you've been working for 5 years. Let's say you've been working there for 5 years, right? 5 years, I'm going to say $100 a week. You take that $100 a week, $5,200 times 5, you're talking $26,000, right? For 5 years. So if you're working at a company for 5 years, you put away $26,000. You have that money. If you ever decide that you really don't want to work there anymore and you want to try something different, you have that cash to make that call. That's when you can start really 10xing your life, right? When you switch jobs, but you need that cushion between switching. And don't quit your job before you get the next job unless you already have your plans. But that is something that you can do to help you manage that increasing your 2-for-1 10x growth. Okay. So that's what I want to share today. It's a very simple thing, maybe not so Scrum and more career guidance as far as this goes. I highly recommend it. It comes in handy. Trust me, especially when you do your own business and you're going paycheck to paycheck, or not paycheck, but invoice to invoice, and try to figure out how to pay everything off. So with that, take care. I wish you the best. Think about that 10%. Think about when you do your budget. Thinking about when you do your reconcile your bank account. Put a little line in there that says 10% of whatever that deposit is goes into your savings, right? And then if you really want to, take another 10% and donate to charity. Help those people, because I'm always thankful for all the gifts I got. Thankful for everyone out there. Thankful for helping us become number 6 in the Agile coaching podcast world. And don't forget to check out the Bubbles thing. I just put that up. We started our ChatGPT audio podcast. So I got a couple episodes up there giving some details. I'll put a survey out today. Let me know what you think. Definitely take the survey if you don't mind. And I wish you the best today. Have a great day. See you tomorrow. Maybe you'll see Bubbles. See ya.